so much of what you're talking about, I think, is people taking that look inside to find some sort of processing system, because everything that goes on in our lives is throwing that dart, that arrow at you, and all that stuff is just stored inside. And if we don't have some sort of system in place to work on processing that stress, it's going to show up, what we're probably about to get into, but in our organs, in our tissues, in our joints, and that's where these systemic problems come down to. What are some of the pieces that you start to use? Because there's no way someone's going to walk in and go from 0 to Paul Chek today. But
they get a good start, though.
Yeah, it'd be a big afternoon. But how?
Just being aware, right? The first step of change is awareness, right? Being aware, and being aware that it's okay to feel shitty, but it's also okay to find a way to solve it that isn't painful, expensive, radical. And I call the pain teacher anything that leads us to have to look deeper into ourselves. Like many of the athletes see me, they've seen all sorts of doctors. They've had their necks, backs, shoulders, knees looked at 50 times, and nobody can figure out why they're still in pain. So what I tell them is because you're actually not addressing the problems, you're addressing the symptoms. The pain teacher will not let go of you until you learn the lesson. So what I'm saying is the first step is just being aware that if you're doing the standard physical therapy, stretching, joint mobilizations, you're taking the supplements and doing everything else everyone tells you to do, and it ain't working, it's because you're looking in the wrong area.
I would say I've seen the biggest improvements in my posture and movement after getting organ work or doing some type of emotional release work.
Yeah, sure.
And I guess I want to point this one thing out. Is I think a lot of times people think they may be in touch with their emotions.
Yeah.
But when they're describing and expressing their emotions, they tend to gravitate towards telling the story about their emotions versus being honest about what's actually going on inside of them.
Yes.
Can you comment on that?
Well, once again, we're not taught how to engage our emotions. So one of the key things I teach my clients is to use the words I'm wanting, I'm feeling, and I'm needing. When you express yourself, especially in relationships, if you say woulda, shoulda, coulda, didn't to yourself or anyone else, that's a judgment. It always creates separation. If you say to your wife in an argument, you should have, you could have, or if you'd have done this, I would have, you are now inciting pain. You're pouring gasoline on the fire, and you're not feeling, you're defending. If you say, honey, I really want some rest, or I really want ... honey, I really need. Or if you're talking to yourself, if I'm talking to myself, Paul, I really need a longer vacation this year. Paul, I'm really feeling sad about the way my finances are right now. It's scary for me. And I feel tears coming, right? It's just like, can I keep this up any longer? I'm really needing some help right now. And maybe we're used to being the badass that carries the whole world on his shoulders, which I've been guilty of many times. But to really just acknowledge I need help. Somehow I've got to get help from someone I trust and somebody that I can be honest about my feelings with without it disabling them or scaring them, right? That's another problem. There's not many people we can be honest about our inner worlds with without them feeling uncomfortable, because if I'm honest with any of you about something that's really painful or scary for me, you then have to be exposed to my pain. And if a person's not whole enough to have empathy for somebody else without getting lost or getting afraid or feeling like they got to defend themselves, then all they try to do is fix you and tell you why you're stuck, or, and that doesn't work. That's like a typical guy telling a woman, well, if you would just eat different, your hormonal cycle would be different and your painful periods would go away, silly. And now you've just lost sex for another week is what you did. But
You went backwards.
so that's a simple technique. Just deal in wants, feelings, and needs when you're with your inner dialogue, and listen carefully for the words I have to.
Yeah.
The words I have to are the words of a child. It's mom that says you have to clean your room. It's dad that says you have to follow the rules. So part of our spiritual growth is whenever we use the words I have to replace them with the words I choose to. And when you realize that what you're wanting, feeling, and needing to recover from what you created is something that you chose to create, then you realize you can choose differently. And as scary as it might be, that's part of your spiritual growth. That's part of becoming either a king or a queen at that stage, from going warrior to king or queen, or it's from king or queen to wise man. You've got to learn to acknowledge what you've chosen. And as Arnold Patton says beautifully in his Universal Principles, if something's happening in your life and you don't think you wanted it, look carefully at what you're choosing unconsciously. And most of us are so detached from what's often called clinically in psychology the shadow, the parts of ourselves we don't want to acknowledge because we don't like them or they're socially unacceptable, that we tend to blame everybody else for those problems. So part of our real healing is acknowledging the dark part of ourselves. So like our insecurities, for example, like a lot of people train like hell in the gym because they're insecure about themselves, and without a bigger dick or a bigger bench press, they think they're a nobody. So when they lose their ability to show their dick off or their bench press off, now they don't know who they are anymore, so they go into a crisis of self. So there's a lot of layers of growth and development. And as I often say to my athletes, I don't care if you can squat 1,000 pounds if you can't get along with your wife and kids. What do you got? You're really, now you're just you might as well be on Planet of the Apes moving rocks.
Yeah.
Because you've spent all that time to develop something that does not help you grow as a human being. Yeah. While it's on my mind, and I have an answer for your question I haven't forgot, you see that piece of art right there?
Yeah.
Okay? This ties into this. This is around the time I was probably 48, 49. I was getting really exhausted. I had been traveling on airplanes nonstop for 20 plus years, all over the world, lecturing constantly, building new programs, training in gyms all over the world, in hotels, parking lots, in staircases, sprinting in underground parking lots, anything I had to do to maintain myself while living on airplanes all the time. And I had to teach my Chek Level 4, which is my most advanced class. And quite honestly, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want anybody around me. I just wanted to go smoke infinite amounts of pot, lay on the beach, read a book, cry a lot, and be alone. But here I am on my king or queen stage. I got a huge overhead. At that time, our overhead was probably $100,000 a month before I got paid. Many employees all over the world, 20-something instructors traveling in the world, and here my most advanced students are coming to learn from the master, and I'm like,
you hate it.
I'm just like, all I got to teach them right now is how to cry and how to be very careful about what you create in your life, because you might get eaten up by your own creation. And so I asked my soul, which is the consciousness within, I just went quiet and said, how do I get through this? And my soul said, get out a piece of paper and some color and express your emotions and just be honest about how you feel. And that's what came to me as a vision. And I sat down. It probably took me half an hour to do that with pastels. And I'll tell you what, it was like somebody flipped a switch in me. I literally painted the emotion out. I painted the pain out. And every time I was on a break, I had it on my art stand, I would come and just sit there. I might, drink some tea or whatever. And I would just sit there and look at that and be with it. And I just see I would see the pain of my love. I would see the purpose of my love. The red is the pain of my love. The green is the purpose of my love, to connect to other people. The blue is my love of teaching, and the white is my love of achieving higher consciousness. And the spiral is the spiral of life, the growth spiral. And the tunnel is the tunnel of the unknown, because nobody on this planet knows where the hell we're going. But we're traveling at 68,000 miles an hour, and nobody's at the wheel.
Yeah.
While we're destroying the spaceship.
I want to go back a little bit. You said something.
Can I answer?
Yes, please.
Bob 1's question. Anders.
Bob 1.
The simple answer, and what I created for the world, was my 4 doctors system, and I have an ebook called The Last Four Doctors You'll Ever Need, How to Get Healthy Now, which teaches you how to be aware of those 4 doctors, what the essentials are, and gives you very simple, practical guidance. I mean, a decently intelligent 12-year-old could probably understand the book, but it shows you the 4 essentials that you must have to have a healthy living philosophy. I don't care what religion you study, what martial art you study. If you don't have clear awareness of what happy making is for you, if you don't have clear connection to your body and awareness of what you need to eat and how you need to hydrate yourself, if you don't know how to use exercise intelligently to keep yourself healthy, let alone strong and fit, but healthy, and if you don't know how to use rest, you have a disabled philosophy. If you think of a wheel with only 4 spokes, if you remove any one of those spokes, it turns into a triangle quite quickly, and those don't roll well. So if you lose awareness and practice of what is happy making, how do I use exercise intelligently, how do I eat intelligently, and how do I rest intelligently, every one of those spokes that's disabled creates tremendous amount of resistance in your life, and the pain teacher comes to kick your ass until you finally find a doctor or a therapist that educates you on what you need to know. But we also have a drug-happy culture that's been conditioned to sell their problems to doctors. So people want to sell their problems, want to medicate their problems to make them go away so they can keep living a dysfunctional philosophy. So ultimately we get to the point where the drugs and the pills and the undereducated doctors and therapists don't work, and we get pushed so deeply into ourselves we have to figure it out. So some people get so exhausted that they simply have to skip work for a couple days a week, and after sleeping for 2 days, they wake up and go, oh my God, I feel so much fucking better.
Yeah.
Oh, I just think maybe I wasn't getting enough sleep. And the next time they start feeling shitty, they go, oh my God, I'm starting to feel I got to take a couple days off and go to sleep again. And they finally wake up one day and go, wow, sleep's the most important thing. I better stop fucking around and messing my sleep up with late night coffee and sugar and crap. So the pain teacher will not stop until you get it or you die. So the answer to your question is, how do we begin to learn that? The first thing you got to do is be aware that those 4 essential categories of a living philosophy have got to be addressed openly and honestly, or you will become very expensive to yourself.
Yeah.